Okay, this video is reviewing combining like terms. The 4 questions that we came up with today in class, yesterday, to use when we're talking about combining like terms that I'm going to keep coming back to over and over on this are: what are my like terms? Which one should I move? Did I cross the line? And are there more like terms? I'm going to be saying these over and over, and as you solve problems, as you're simplifying problems in the worksheet, you need to have these questions going through your head each time you do a problem. You should have the worksheet review combining like terms video. Starts with number 1, 2n minus 3 equals 5. So I'm going to talk about the cherries and boxes thing again, because it's a really helpful way to understand why there are some numbers we can combine and why there are some numbers that we can't. Anything with a letter, either right next to it, which is times, or over it, which is divide, represents boxes of cherries. So this 2n means 2 boxes of cherries. I don't know how many are actually in those boxes, I just know that I have 2 boxes. This minus 3, those are actually cherries. It's just a number by itself, there's no letter. And this 5, these are cherries too. So when I look at this, it's easy for me to understand that I can't combine these 2 things. If you had 2 boxes and 3 cherries and I asked you how many cherries you had, you wouldn't tell me you had 5 cherries, because you would need to know how many cherries were in the boxes first. So I can't combine these because they represent 2 completely different types of quantities. But these 2 things are the same. So when I'm looking at my first question, what are my like terms? My like terms in this problem are the minus 3 and the 5. My second question is, which one should I move? 2 things to remember. I'm always trying to move away from the letter, and I don't want to leave either side blank. So sometimes it doesn't matter which one I move. But when I look at this problem, I go, hey, if I move this 5, there's nothing left on this side. It's a balance scale. An equation is a balance scale, and it helps me to have something on both sides. So in this case, the answer to which one should I move is the negative 3. I'm going to move that over here. The next question is, did I cross the line? Yeah, I did. And if I cross the line, I change the sign. Minus 3 becomes plus 3. At this point, I'm going to rewrite the problem. And on today's assignment, I'm going to ask you to rewrite the problem every step of the way. I know that it's a pain, I know that it's not the fast way, and I know that you can do the math in your head. That's not what this is about. If I'm taking the EOC and I want to pass and my score matters, then I need to be perfect. And in order to be perfect, I'm going to rewrite the problem at every step so that I don't make any little mistakes by doing mental math or by trying to move too many things at once. So every step of the way, I'm rewriting the problem. 5 plus 3 is 8. I bring down the equal sign, and I bring down the 2n. This is another good time to talk about cherries and boxes. I have my boxes, I have my cherries. Once you get to a point where you have boxes on one side and cherries on another, the equation is simplified. It's not necessarily solved. This n isn't isolated, so I don't know yet how many cherries are in each box. But I've gotten to a point where I can't combine terms anymore. Boxes on one side, cherries on the other. I'm done with step 2. And it's really important to know when you're done with step 2, because when we move on to step 3, we're multiplying and dividing. Being done with step 2 means no more adding and subtracting in our equation, and that's really important to know when to stop adding and subtracting. But at this point, in this equation, we are done. Boxes, cherries, I'm done. So the answer to number 1 on your worksheet is 2n equals 8. That is the simplified version of this equation. Let's look at number 2. Number 2 says 3 plus x over 2 equals 1. Now these division problems you can still think of in terms of cherries and boxes. This is 3 boxes. This is 1 box divided into 2 parts, because we have our division sign there. So that's what's going on here. We have 1 box divided into 2 parts, and we have 1 cherry over here. So I can still come back to this to understand my like terms. When I ask what are my like terms, I can still see pretty clearly that it's this 3 and this 1, because they're the only things representing the same types of quantities. I'm going to draw my line down the equal sign, and I'm going to ask the second question, which one should I move? In this case, I need to move the 3. If I move the 1, there's nothing left on this side. Plus, I'm always trying to move away from my letter, because eventually, at the end of all 3 steps, I want this x to be completely isolated, to be the only thing on this side of the equal sign. So I'm always trying to move away from it. So I'm going to move 3 over here. Number 3 says, did I cross the line? I did. If I cross the line, I change the sign. So this is a positive 3. It's going to become a negative or a minus 3. I'm going to rewrite the problem. Make sure you're using your calculator to double check. Like I said, with the rewriting of the equation, this is a time where we want it to be perfect. This isn't a test of our mental math skills. This shows our ability to think algebraically and to follow algebraic formulas and rules. 1 minus 3 is negative 2. Bring down the equal sign, always bring down the equal sign, and bring down this x over 2 because we haven't used that yet either. Return to our cherries and boxes. I have 1 box. I have negative 2 cherries. Boxes and cherries, I'm done simplifying. This is when I tell myself I'm done with step 2. I'm moving on to multiplication and division. Now, today's assignment only asks you to simplify, not to solve. This is simplified, so the answer to number 2 is x over 2 equals negative 2. Number 3, the equations start to get a little longer. It says 17 equals v plus 3 minus 8v. I'm not going to draw 17 cherries. We'll just say cherries are boxes. This is cherries. Cherries are boxes. This is a letter. It represents boxes. Cherries are boxes. This is a number, so it represents cherries. Cherries are boxes. This has a letter attached to it, so it represents boxes. So even without drawing them all out, I can still see pretty clearly what the like terms are. Now, when I ask this question, what are my like terms, I'm only going to identify 2 at a time. In this equation, I have 2 sets. I have these 2, and I have these 2. But I'm only going to circle 2 because I can only deal with 2 at a time. And I like circling the like terms because then it's really clear for me to see which ones I've already used and which ones I haven't. So I'm going to pick either these 2 or these 2 to do first. It doesn't matter which one. Do whichever one floats your boat. I'm going to pick 17 and positive 3. I ask myself, which one should I move? Sometimes it doesn't matter, but here it still does. If I move the 17, I have nothing left on this side. So I'm going to move the 3, which is the 3rd time in a row I've had to move the 3. Number 3 says, did I cross the line? Yes, I did, so plus 3 becomes minus 3. Now I'm rewriting the whole problem, even though I still have work left to do. 17 minus 3 is 14 equals, bring down v, and bring down minus 8v. You can see how it helped that I'd circled these because I knew this one was gone and I didn't accidentally rewrite it again. So now I have 14v minus 8v. 14, cherries are boxes. Cherries. V, cherries are boxes. Boxes. Negative 8v, cherries are boxes. Boxes. So now I get to question number 4. Are there more like terms? In this problem there are, because there are still these 2 things that can be combined. So you'll note that I drew this arrow that goes back up here, because if there are more like terms, I'm going to start the whole process over. The question is, what are my like terms? This and this. Which one should I move? It doesn't matter because I'm on the same side. Okay? So you can move this one under this one, or the other way around. I do like moving one underneath the other, because just like we did when we had the graph paper and we were physically moving our cards one underneath the other, we can see very clearly when we cross the line and when we don't. So I'm going to move v under 8v. Number 3 says, did I cross the line? I did not. Here's my line for my equal sign. I didn't cross it. And the rule is, if I don't cross the line, I don't change the sign. This is a positive V. It's going to stay a positive V. So now I have negative 8V plus V, because a positive is a plus. Negative 8 plus V. If there's no number in front of the letter, then how many do I have? It should be 1. So my number here is actually a positive 1. Negative 8 plus 1 is negative 7. Don't forget your letter. Bring down the equals, bring down the 14. Cherries or boxes? This is cherries. This is boxes. I have cherries on one side and boxes on the other, so I'm done simplifying my problem. The answer then to number 3 is 14 equals negative 7V. You can see that this problem was a little bit different because I had to combine some things without crossing the equal sign, and I had to combine some things with crossing the equal sign. So it's really important that I ask myself that question every time I move something. Did I cross the line? Look at number 4. Number 4 says negative 23 equals 3x minus 5 minus 6. I'm going to continue to ask the cherries or boxes questions, but that's not something you actually have to do on your worksheet unless you find that it really helps you, in which case, knock yourself out. Negative 23, boxes or cherries? Cherries. 3x, boxes or cherries? Boxes. Negative 5, boxes or cherries? Cherries. Negative 6, boxes or cherries? Cherries. Question number 1, what are my like terms? Pick 2 of the like terms that you see and circle them. Doesn't actually have to be the same ones that I pick, because there are 3 like terms here. I have 3 numbers. So it doesn't matter if I want to combine these 2 first, or these 2, or these 2. I am going to draw my line in here. And I'm going to pick 2 of them. Let's say I'm going to pick negative 23 and negative 5. Maybe you decided to combine these first. That's fine. I'm going to bring my minus 5 over underneath my 23. I ask myself, did I cross the line? I did, so this minus 5 needs to change to a plus 5. Calculators, what is negative 23 plus 5? You should have negative 18. Negative 18, now rewrite the problem, equals 3x. You can see I know I don't need to rewrite this negative 5 because I circled it in the last step. That's why I circled them. But I do need to rewrite this minus 6. Which brings me to question number 4. Are there more like terms? And yes, there are, so I'm going to go right back to the very beginning of my questions and say, what are my like terms? In this case, 18 and negative 6. Cherries, boxes, cherries. So I'm going to combine these 2. Question number 2 is, which one should I move? I should move the minus 6. Because if I move the negative 18, I've got nothing left on this side, and I always want to be moving away from the variable. Question number 3 is, did I cross the line? So what happens to my minus 6? So now I have calculators, negative 18 plus 6. And back to question 4 again. Are there more like terms? Cherries, boxes. No, there are no more like terms, so I am done with step 2. For the rest of solving this problem, I would not do any more adding or subtracting. I would only do multiplying or dividing. But for this assignment, which says simplify in the directions, I'm done. I have cherries on one side and boxes on the other. So the answer to number 4 is negative 12 equals 3x. I want you to look at number 5. It says 5n plus 6 equals 14 plus n. I'm going to pause here for a minute, and I want you to go through some of the steps on your own. I'm going to give some occasional prompts, but I'm going to wait for you to go ahead and solve the problem. Then I'm going to solve the problem, and I want you to check your work against mine. Go ahead, start with the first step. What are my like terms? Pick 2 of those like terms and circle them. Then ask, which one should I move? In this equation, it probably doesn't matter which one you move because I have letters and numbers on both sides. Question 3, did I cross the line? And if you did, then what does that do to your number or to your letter? Do the math and rewrite the equation entirely. Now you have to ask, are there more like terms? And your answer should be yes. Which brings you back to number 1. What are the like terms? Circle 2 of them. Which one should I move? One of those should be moving away from the letter. Did you cross the line? If you crossed the line, then what do you have to do? Do the math and rewrite the equation completely. Look at the numbers you have. Think of the cherries in boxes. Are there more like terms? At this point, there shouldn't be. You should have cherries on one side and boxes on the other, and the problem should be simplified. I'm going to go ahead and solve the problem, but I'm going to show you that this one could actually come up with 2 answers, and either of them are right. I'm going to go through this a little bit quickly. My like terms. I'm going to pick 5n and n. It doesn't matter which one you move. Let's say we move this n over here. I cross the line, so my plus n becomes a minus n. And I remember that when I don't have a number in front of a letter, I put a 1 in there. 5n minus 1n is 4n. I rewrite the problem. Plus 6 and equals 14. I'm at question 4. Are there more like terms? 6 and 14. I move the 6 away from the letter. My plus 6 becomes a minus 6. I do the math. 14 minus 6 is 8. I bring down my equal sign and I bring down my 4n. I don't bring down 6 because I already used that, and I can see that because I circled it. I look at this and I go boxes, cherries, I'm done. This equation is simplified. But I'm going to show you that there was actually another way to do this that was just as correct. 5n plus 6 equals 14 plus n. What if instead of moving n this way, I'd moved 5n this way? Okay, my positive 5n crosses the line and becomes a minus 5n. And in my calculator, I go 1 minus 5n gives me a negative 4n. I rewrite the problem, bringing down the 6 and the 14. I identify that I still have like terms, 6 and 14. Now I have to move the 14. So I move the 14 away from the letter. My positive 14 crosses the line and becomes a minus 14. 6 minus 14 is negative 8. I bring down the equals. I bring down, don't miss this negative, those negatives. I bring down the minus 4n. Same problem, 2 different answers. It doesn't matter though, because once I isolate these, I'm going to get the same value for n. So don't worry if the answer that your neighbor gets is slightly different from yours or slightly different than the answer I come up with in terms of the negatives. The numbers, they got to be the same. But 4n equals 8 is actually the same as negative 8 equals negative 4n. So either one of those is an appropriate answer to number 5. I want you to spend the rest of the class period finishing this worksheet. As you go through each problem, I want you to focus on asking yourself those 4 questions. What are my like terms? Which one should I move? Did I cross the line? And are there more like terms? I want you to go slowly. I want you to use your calculator, and I want you to rewrite the equation at each step. Remember that the goal here is perfection. It's going to take time and it's not going to be easy. But you have this, and I know you can do it. So, get going.